It's pretty dark outside. Your eyes struggling to open. You get up reluctantly and have a shower, make yourself a coffee. You casually look at the forecast, see what sort of day it's going to be, and drive into work. Today, we're going to be talking about the daily life of a charter pilot and what it's like to actually do the job you've been training for and now, hopefully, applying for. All that and more coming right up. So strap in and let's get into it.
Standby star 9000, 1013, Kilo 25. Coordinating aileron and rudder, bank, balance, bank pressure, rolling at 30 degrees. That's 30 degrees there. 3 left, runway 29,
G'day everyone and welcome to another exciting episode of Flight Training Australia podcast, episode 132. The podcast all about flight training and flying in Australia and beyond. I'm your host, Trent Robinson. G'day. Thank you for joining me. Hope you've had a wonderful weekend. Another fantastic week ahead. The jets have been causing chaos up here in Darwin. Well, it's actually not just the jets' fault. It's a combination of runway works, jets and NOTAMs no one can understand. But I kind of actually figured them out the other day between that, the ARP, SUPs and everything else. It's getting exciting now. We just don't know what time you're going to get back and whether it's holding or not and which taxiways are going to be open and closed. But it's all starting to make sense and everyone's starting to fall into the groove, which is fantastic. And look, if you've got to get stuck at a holding point, there's no real better reason than to sit there watching fighter jets take off and land, especially at night. The other night, the full afterburner. It's very cool. And a few more weeks to go of we've got Diamond Storm and then a short break and then into pitch black. I know a lot of you are thinking of coming up to Darwin to check it all out and watch. For those spotters, no better place to be, really. The mixture of military aircraft that will be up here in the territory is probably second to none, I would say. You'll love it. And the list is available on the RWF website page, and they have all the details there showing you the aircraft that will be going on, including the Mindle Beach flying display and the aircraft that will be on display on the RAF Open Day, which is a really great day. It is traffic chaos, so make sure you allow plenty of time. But I think they'll get that a lot better organised this year. Last year, the response was just, I think, really caught them off guard. So this year will be much better. But 18th of July is the Mindle Beach flying display, and from 5 to 5:30, you've got the Osprey, the Australian Tigers. There's what have we got? The F-15, the Philippines F-50 Golden Eagle. Some really different stuff. The French Raphael. After that, then we've got the Italian Navy is coming. They're bringing a carrier, and they've got the F-35s, but also the Harrier. So watching the Harrier do its vertical stuff and just hovering off the beach is going to be unreal to see. What else? The Italian Air Force is coming, so they're bringing their Typhoons and F-35s. We've got the Gripen fighter or the Gripen, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It's only got one P. What do you reckon? From the Thai Air Force, the British Typhoons, F-15s from Korea, Singapore F-16s, F-15s, Japanese F-2 fighter, the F-16s from Indonesia, from India, the Sukhoi 30 is going to be, Su-30, going to be back again. Amazing aeroplane, that one. The United States F-22, if you've not seen the F-22 at the Avalon Air Show, it is something to see. I mean, I'm loving the F-35. I just saw the F-35 do its thing here at the Hidden Valley for the V8s today again. But the F-22 Raptor is a machine. And finishing with the F-18 Super Hornet and the Growler. So that's the F-18F and the EA-18G. Very cool collection of airplanes. And there'll be a chance to see them flying around the territory at the display and then get up nice and close and personal on the open day. I'm also hoping to be there, just organising the details now to be there and maybe run some interviews and do some podcasting there as well, which will be awesome to meet you. So I'll keep you posted on that. And if you do come up, make sure you come up and say g'day. I'll be there in one shape or form or another. All right. So today I thought I've been getting a lot of questions just about the GA transition course and what's involved. And ultimately, what it is about is getting you ready for flight training. The course itself is really being put together through necessity of everything that we're seeing up here, the feedback from head of operations, from chief pilots are all around, check and trainers, flight examiners, other instructors, from companies all over the place that I speak to, but most importantly, the ones up here in the territory. Very directly linked with most of the schools up here, most of the companies up here. I do a lot of the check and training for them and flight testing and just help out and a bit of mentoring and advice and that sort of thing. And the constant message is that the same issues just keep coming up and people are failing their check rides and ICAS, and no sooner than you've been given a job and you're so excited and pumped that you've then lost it, which is just devastating. And I want to do something about it. I am doing something about it through this podcast, through the training that I give, through the feedback I give to other training operators, and hopefully we can start making some difference and some changes and really get out there and doing the job, which is looking after everybody and ensuring that we all go home safe and sound at night. So I thought, what better way to just give a bit of a daily rundown of what a typical day's work in a charter environment is like. Now, whether this is flying people around, running freight, doing aerial survey, all that sort of thing, it doesn't really matter. It's all a fairly common theme. Where this fits in is into scenario-based training from a training perspective. And I've talked about this before and I will talk about it more as well. When you do commercial training, as I mentioned last episode, the training that is given is supposed to replicate real life environment. It's not. It's turned into more scenario-based general handling, and the actual focus on what the job's about and the sort of tasks you may ask to be performed are not being covered. Now, this isn't because your school is limited to where they are located, all right? The whole idea is this is the ultimate fantasy game. You can make up all sorts of scenarios and recreate them. Some you can do a bit more realistically than others, but this is all stuff that you can do. And I've mentioned these before. We used to have a DC-3 down in Bunbury Way, which is south of Perth, and we used to set up a search and rescue flight, set up a grid pattern and doing 1 mile separated legs up and down, north-south line, until we eventually found the aircraft. And when the student actually saw the airplane down there on the ground, they laughed and they thought, this is so cool, not even realizing that it was actually there to begin with. Simulated freight runs, medical transfers, patient transfers, all sorts. There's just so much you can do. And as an instructor, you can really have some fun with it. And for a student to just really, whether they do it correctly or not, it doesn't matter, because at the end, they'll understand what needs to be done and how to go about it better next time. And this is what we're talking about, being job ready. Anyway, I talked about that the last few episodes. Let's get into what's involved. And it usually 100% starts with the way this episode opens, and that is the dreaded alarm on your phone. Yep, there it is again. All right, and yep, there's the snooze. And what? Who's about 3 or 4 alarms? Who does that? All right, I know the other day I've got to get up for the Mallard this morning as you're listening to this, and luckily it's a really long day, so I don't have to get up quite so early because we've got a separate crew going in and doing all the prep for us. And then we're going to do a handover and then head off from there to save some duty time. So this is what's going to be involved. Certainly waking up early is part of it, all right? So if you're not an early riser, you need to do something about that or start looking for another career. A lot of flying happens because, just like at the airline level, everyone needs to get to work. Now, on the East Coast, this is very common because people are going from Melbourne to Sydney, Sydney to Melbourne to Brisbane, whatever, Canberra, and they're all getting on flights ready to start their day at 9 o'clock or thereabouts. And it's no different here. My wife gets on the plane to go across to the Tiwi Islands to do her medical work. They're all there at 7 a.m., ready to go, heading off about 7:30, sometimes 8 o'clock. And that means you need to be there before that, getting everything ready, getting all your passenger weights, all that sort of stuff. So waking up early is 100% part of it. The first thing, of course, you're going to be doing is checking your weather, your NOTAMs, working out your flight plan. And some days this is very simple and straightforward. Other days it can be a bit more complicated. Like right now, the weather's fantastic, but the NOTAMs are plentiful. So it depends on where you're going. If you've got airspace problems, where you can usually fly, but today, for example, all down to the southwest is restricted areas. Most of it's up high, but some of it goes down to surface. This may mean you have to go around it or under it, and that will change fuel flows and flight times and all that sort of stuff. There's been a lot of pilots I've heard on the radio lately that are being told you've flight planned directly through a restricted area. You will now need to go via this waypoint, and this waypoint. So you need to make sure that you are aware of what's active, what's not, how your flight route's looking, how the weather's looking, your alternates, your fuel stops, all those sort of things, and what the day is looking like. And that could actually lead to potentially a time blowout because you're sitting on the ground most of the time, which is called a day wait, waiting for your passengers. But by the time they get back, and with the increased flight times and everything else, it may make the job very difficult to do. It could potentially become a double run, which means you have to come back and then someone else goes out later in the day to do the return flight. All these sort of things are possibly scenarios that you're going to come up against. Weight and balance, dangerous goods, need to check dangerous goods. Usually some companies have check-in sort of staff or people that can help with that. Others, it's your responsibility. But ultimately, you need to know what's going on board your flight and ensure that whatever gets onto your aircraft is good to go. Very common issues like a lot of transporting of Coles, Woolworths, shopping. It's all been bagged up and ready. You need to inspect that for things that might be very, very subtle, but lighters and fluids and chemicals, cleaning agents, that sort of stuff, which are just part of the regular home grocery shopping, but could actually form a dangerous good that needs to be carried on one's person or something else, not tucked away in a baggage compartment that's not accessible, especially with nose lockers and rear lockers, wing lockers, that sort of thing. It's a real threat. All right. So part of all that is then getting the aircraft ready. So with the paperwork done, head out to the apron, maybe the hangar if you're lucky, get the aircraft ready. Good thorough pre-flight, making sure that you're not just wishing over it just because you flew it yesterday. Remember, airplanes have things break and fall off and get damaged and stop working through use. So make sure that you do that. And this applies to maybe taking over an airplane from someone else as well. They've done the daily inspection, but have a good look over it. All right, I've come across aircraft that have already flown with things wrong, little panels and stuff that are open or whatever else that were missed or have come undone during flight. Doesn't mean the previous pilot missed it. Sometimes these things work their way loose, but make sure you do a good thorough pre-flight. Get your fuel sorted out, your fuel drains, making sure everything else is sorted out. And then the next thing is very common is you then get the aircraft started up and head to the passing bay or the run-up bay and go and do your run-ups. The reason we do that is so that you don't have to wait for, you get your passengers and then they have to wait while we're sitting there doing extra run-ups, especially up here with the heat. It just minimizes the time passengers are on board the aeroplane, and it also gives you a chance to detect anything that's wrong and get maintenance onto it before the flight's due and hopefully get it resolved beforehand. So definitely a concept you want to do. And then typically you'll get changed into your proper uniform and then into loading your passengers and heading off. So good passenger brief, get all that done, make sure everyone knows what's happening, passenger manifests and everything else is all finalized, and off you go. So with everyone on board, head off to the runway, and it's a busy time, especially here with the GA. There's everyone doing a similar thing over a similar time frame. So there's a lot of aircraft departing, and then by the time the last ones are trying to depart, some of them are already starting to come back because they're fairly local flights like the Tiwi Islands and that sort of thing. So a lot of aircraft going backwards and forwards, and that time needs to be taken into account. Once you get going, in case you're on the job. So looking after your passengers, making sure you keep them up to date with when you're going to get there, trying to find the smoothest ride for them. Not everyone enjoys bumping around in airplanes, okay? And this is something that I see a lot with the nose yawing left and right. When pilots are reaching altitude, they realize, 3,000, pitch hard over. And I tell them to look out the back, and then I do what they just did. And they realize how the back row, especially in something like the 210 and everything else that's got more than 4 seats, there's a big moment arm there. And passengers are moving a long way left and right and up and down. And this is why people hate flying light aircraft, because usually they're just being flown really poorly. Sometimes it's just a generally rough day and there's not much you can do about it, apart from maybe climbing. Right? And this is something I had the other day. We're sitting there under the cloud base, banging around, and I said, why don't we go on top of the cloud? It was just few to scattered, very easily VFR on top. This was an IFR flight, but it was VFR on top, no problem at all. And suddenly we just got on top of the cloud base and nice, smooth conditions. And I thought, how much better is that? And the student agreed, because they weren't bouncing around trying to control the thing either. So all that sort of stuff, something you want to think about and do. Update your base or headquarters with your estimates, all that sort of thing, so that everyone knows where you are and what you're doing. A lot of the aircraft have things like spider tracks and that as well, so they can keep track of you. And then it just depends on what the day's like. I've talked about the wet season plenty of times. Right now we've got smoke from the burn-offs, and we have had a couple of non-VMC areas that have been very difficult to fly through, and you had to go around. So all that needs to happen, and then constantly updating our ETAs, our fuel flows, our fuel burns, and making sure that we've got enough of everything to get the job done safely. Sometimes you get passenger issues. Sometimes they don't show up. Sometimes they get scared, might be nervous about flying. All sorts of issues. So dealing with your passengers is also something that you got to get used to and be comfortable with as a pilot in controlling the cabin and making sure everyone's doing the right thing. Coming into land, strip inspections. So I've seen some of you try and do a strip inspection and have no idea how to go about one, but sometimes you need to do a strip inspection, especially after the rain. A lot of you would have done a prep search and landing at some point. Unfortunately, it's one of these maneuvers that gets taught as a bit of a box ticking exercise, but there's a real genuine application to it of setting up a proper strip inspection to ensure that the runway is clear, the surface is suitable, and possibly scare off some wildlife if there is any. Early morning, late evenings, just after rain, brings everyone out to get the fresh grass and the dew. So make sure that this landing area is all good to go. Once you land, might be time to refuel. You've obviously got to disembark your passengers, get them out of the aircraft. You might need to then jump into a minibus or something else and transport them to the final destination. You might be returning home. You could be doing a day wait, like I said, just hanging around the local community or the local area, occupying a few hours whilst you wait for them to finish their day. You can be doing tours and things. You'd be going along on tours with your guests. You've got to unload freight and reload freight. Could be raining. Could be hot and sweaty. All of these things are fatiguing, which means hydration, food, really, really important, and good rest. It can be long, long days. When you're doing your flight training, you used to go do a 2.5 hour, maybe a 3 hour flight, whatever, and then go home. All right. That's just part of a day up here in the territory and in any employment. All right. You see your instructors, we're all working, 8 till 5 or whatever. Everyone's going to be doing a similar thing. You've got maybe a second flight to do. Sometimes you've only got one. Depending on where you work, that might be your duty period. You get to go home when you're finished. Others, you hang around a bit longer. You might be on standby. It can be long days. So make sure you drink adequately, make sure you eat, and make sure you sleep well. All these things can have a real impact on your mental performance and cognitive function. Of course, after that's all sorted, you head home. You do it all again. Return leg, dealing with delays, with traffic, with holding, navigating weather, and usually if it's in the afternoon, especially in the wet season, that's when it's game on and a lot more to deal with. And there's not a lot of time in between. I can tell you, as you're listening to this, I'll be in the Mallard, going to be heading out to Curry Bay and Broome. We've got extra passengers and cargo tomorrow, so we're going to have to do a fuel stop in Truscott, fuel stop in Curry Bay, fuel stop, passenger unload in Curry Bay and in Broome, reload, more freight, more fuel, more passengers, passenger brief. All this stuff is going to be happening at all these different points, and it's always go, go, go. So you get a bit of rest on the en route part and get a chance to have something to eat and drink and relax a little bit. But it is a busy day, and especially doing multi-crew ops, it's up to 12 hours of duty, keeps you on your toes, and a very, very busy day. You do get used to it. It's something you can do, especially at Care Flight. Working day shift, night shift can be quite challenging. You've really got to manage your fatigue and your sleep patterns, and your social life does have a bit of an impact. Sometimes it's just hard to do stuff during the week. If you get the opportunity to do it and it fits in, then awesome, and definitely do that. But there are days, like with many other jobs, that sometimes you just can't be as social or go out as late, right? It's like being a radio jockey for a breakfast show on the radio. You just don't get to do much stuff at the night time because you're already in bed. But if there's one main difference that you're going to find between flight training and doing the job, it's going to be that you're up there by yourself. You are, in every sense of the word, the pilot in command because you are the only pilot. There's no instructor sitting there next to you. Eventually, there's going to be no training captain or check captain sitting next to you. You have to make the decisions. If you got to get a radio call that you don't understand, you can't just sit there and go, what did they say? You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to just have the courage to have a go or say again. You're going to have airspace issues, weather issues, airplane issues. This is where systems knowledge comes in, understanding the forecast of weather, knowing how to ask Brisbane Centre, Melbourne Centre for information or details, talk to the air traffic controllers if they're there, get information from other pilots. You need to learn to be resourceful and independent and do the job without having to ask every single thing. So hopefully if you've got an instructor who's doing that already, fantastic. If you're an instructor listening, this is what your commercial students need more than anything, the ability to be independent. Please stop making radio calls for them. Please let them make mistakes. Of course, we're there to chaperone and keep things safe, but there's plenty of things that we can let go and evolve before we just jump in and fix it. The true art of good instructional delivery and assessment is learning to sit back, relax. Once the student has the tools they need to try and put it all into practice, they will learn from getting it right. They will learn from getting it wrong. All right. But you need to get confident and not cocky. Big difference. Don't want to be a cowboy or cowgirl, but be safe and comfortable in your actions and your limitations and knowing where your limits are, and just go and learn on the job and have the best time possible. It's a fantastic adventure. It's a fantastic journey, and I've absolutely loved doing the job for the last 25 years, doing charter work and instructing, just the perfect blend on and off, and teaching you guys what it's like to do all these sort of things. The GA transition course is there for you if you want it. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Running all sorts of different courses and tours and forums and that sort of stuff up here. And I'm looking at getting some of it online as well, which will help buy a bit more time in my day so that you can do all that training before you get up here and get stuck into it. So that will hopefully be online very, 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 very soon, but don't expect it within a month. It'll be after Queensland. So I'm hoping by the end of July, that'll be all up and running. For long-term training, I am looking at February now for any training that you'd like to do. Unfortunately, I'm sorry that that's such a long wait, but it is a bit of a way to plan ahead, but that's just where I'm at the moment. It's all booked up. There are a few slots that are going to be available for some geo-transition training. I'll start releasing those soon and pairing you up with somebody else if you don't come with someone, but there will probably be only 2 to 3 slots for the remainder of the year at the moment. Things do cancel, so those of you that have sort of wanted to fly with me, I would love to fly with you too. We're just going to have to wait and see if anything changes. Being planned so far out, I've had some students have to pull out from family issues and personal circumstances changing, or they've got a job and don't need to do it at the moment. So that's also news, and that's what it's all about. But for those who want to do it, let me know. Okay, so keep studying, keep working hard, and listen to all the other episodes. There's heaps of tips there about job applications, getting your resume sorted, all that sort of thing. I review all that on the course, and we talk about a whole heap of other things, of a lot of the deficiencies that we're finding in pilots, so that you can be as well prepared and job ready as possible. All right, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful, safe week, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Until then, blue skies, and remember the golden rule: aviate, navigate, communicate. See ya.